Hi, Roma. Thank you so much for joining us today on Her Forum. It's such a pleasure to have you and speak to you. I am so excited that you agreed to come chat with us because I think there's so many insights from your journey that'll be really useful for a lot of our viewership.
Yeah, thanks so much, Nihan, for having me. I'm equally looking forward to this chat.
Thank you. So I'm just going to start off by introducing you really briefly. Roma Priya
Okay.
is the founder of Virgin Law, which is a new age one-stop legal firm that advises startups and incubators and angel investors, venture capital, and private equity funds. It is rated as the best law firm in private equity. And since the foundation of her company in 2015, she has facilitated over 500 deals and also regularly advises and mentors a lot of startups. So I'm really excited to know more about your journey and more about how you've created, such an impact in this space. Even competing with some of the oldest and the best law firms, but creating a name for yourself. So I just wanted to, start off by talking about how your career started, and you're someone who has built a career in a very specific niche, right? So
Correct.
which is startup law or working in the VC law space. And
Yeah.
as a women lawyers network and community, I think it would be very helpful for a lot of people to understand how you found that this is a field that you were passionate about. Did you, was it trial and error? How did you navigate your way in the beginning to eventually land up on wanting to then build your career in this very specific space?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think a lot of clarity comes when you look at things in hindsight, but I think it's been a process of discovery, right? So, like any other law student, I was interning in different kind of law firms and experimenting with different kinds of areas of practice. So I did litigation, I did intellectual property, I did corporate law, I did capital markets, right? Now, out of law school, I started working with a bank first, which was not anything, it's not anything to do with what I do now. But what I knew from that experience is that I didn't enjoy it, which I think has helped me kind of, reason and resonate with what I want to do more now, right? So I was working with Kotak Mahindra Bank in their asset recovery division, which essentially what they do is that, so back in the day, Kotak Mahindra bought a lot of assets from other nationalized banks, and this particular division, through various methods and legal proceedings, looks to recover some of those bad debts, right? So there was a lot of like, a lot of like, uh, what do you say, like a lot of like negativity around that area of practice. Like I used to feel quite overburdened with seeing promoters come to our office, and you be extremely sad, and then so it started from there. And then while I kind of figured what I didn't like about that particular job and that particular role, I started looking out for more opportunities, right? And I came across a firm called Sandhill Council, that at that point of time, very early, like I don't think the startup market was what it is today. And not many people knew about startups, not many people could understand why somebody would invest in a company and not take a mortgage, not take charge. It's basically debt free equity for you to go on and build your dreams with no assured return, right? So not a lot of people understood it, but this firm was basically being built by a US attorney between US and India. And they kind of were exposed of the US market, right, which had already evolved, and there were companies raising a lot of capital, and this movement was kind of starting in India, right? So through them, from 2011 to 2015, I gained a lot of experience in working with companies, working with investors. And I think when you decide what you want to do in life, you have to start from why, right? So I really find it very inspiring to work with entrepreneurs, to work with people who are looking to change the way the world is today, who are trying to make things better. Like 10 years back, you couldn't have stood on a road and hailed a cab from a phone. And you couldn't be doing so many things that we can like not even imagine our lives without today, right? And who has done this? It has happened through innovation and technology. and extremely passionate entrepreneurs who've taken a lead to change the world. I think so I think I enjoyed working with entrepreneurs a lot. That was one of the things that kind of really made me want to focus on startup law. And because of the 3-4 years that I had worked with the firm, I had built some individual identity with many clients, many funds. So when I decided to break away and start on my own, it became an easy transition as well, right? So I really, I'm a big believer of you rather be a master, or at least try to be a master of one area, than to be trying different things, right? So I really think that if you can in your life, I think dedicated focus on any aspect will just reap better returns, right? So some people take longer. Fortunately for me, 1 year after law school, after I left that job with Kotak Mahindra, I kind of found an area of law that I felt excited about. It didn't feel like work. I learned so much. I think, over the last 10 years, it's literally been like doing a live MBA. I'm one of those rare lawyers who ask founders a lot of questions about their business, because I'm so inquisitive about how they're thinking about something, and curious about, how do they think it's possible. Like just last week I got a call from a founder, and he said that I'm building a company, and I said, what are you doing? And he said, I'm building a company that will build satellites. So I said, so it's not something that you hear very often. So I was like, okay, what kind of satellites? He said, it'll monitor traffic in space. So I'm just giving you an example of, like, normal people don't even think that far, right? Like, I think it's so inspiring to be in the company of people who think beyond what life is today. And that's been one of the major reasons why I chose startup law. It's not, and I think, while I started building out Virgin Law, I kind of realized that we can be a big catalyst to the startup movement in the country, right? Because a lot of firms are focusing on companies that have already scaled, have already reached a certain level, right? And we actually, have a different principle in mind. We want to be a law firm that can be a support to an entrepreneur who's just getting started. So a lot of our clients are people who are just getting started with their business, and then we can continue to work with them as they grow and try and be their partner in growth. But I really think that there was a space for a law firm that didn't look at only scaled companies, and also wanted to partner with entrepreneurs right from when they get started. And I think that's what we capitalized on. Yeah, and that's been a big factor in our growth story.
Right. Okay. That's amazing. And that actually brings me to my next question, which was regarding, I mean, I read a statistic the other day, which is actually relevant to the space you're in as well, which is that there
Yeah.
are apparently only 20 women who have led a startup through to an IPO. And that number really stands out when you hear it first. But, when you look at the legal ecosystem, particularly in India as well, when you look at the number of women who are founders of law firms that are incredibly successful, the numbers are also as bleak. So I just wanted to know about what led you to take that plunge, and also like your main learnings from the perspective of a founder of a law firm, not just a lawyer.
Yeah, I think so. I think what made me start is that you become like the company you keep, right? I was working with hundreds of entrepreneurs, so I don't come from an entrepreneurial background. My family has been in service. I come from a legal background, though I have maybe like 30 lawyers in my family, mostly litigation lawyers, right? So law came very easily. But I think like I said, that around me were people who were starting their own ventures all the time, right? So that entire aspect of what will happen and all of that kind of took a backseat in my mind. And I don't think a lot of people know this, Nihan. So I really wanted to be an entrepreneur, right? One thing that I really knew was that I want to build something myself than work with somebody. So even when I was at my previous law firm, I was always thinking of ideas. Some so very I actually did not start thinking that I'm going to build a law firm. So the way my journeys kind of evolved is that I left my previous job, not to really build a law firm, but to start a juicing business with my sister. Not many people know this, right? So she had brought an Australian master franchise to India by the name of Juiced, and we wanted to do bottle juices, at a lower cost, and like put these refrigerators across gyms, across hospitals, and make it like more accessible, cheaper, and things like that. So I actually left that job to brainstorm on what this potential could mean, and I was actually okay to leave my legal career. But along the way, I think I used to get a lot of calls from founders who knew me, and saying that, can you read this document, can you help us negotiate this one project, right? So I started taking up projects like that, and then we hired a legal manager within Juiced, because the inflow of a few clients, and referrals that were coming through them became quite a lot for me to individually manage, and also kind of try and develop this idea with my sister. So we got a legal manager at Juiced who'd support me also for writing these contracts and help me, put together documents for clients that were coming our way. And it really started as a freelance, right? Like, I think that a lot of people think that you have it all figured out, and 5 years later it's easy to say that I started thinking, on the lines of building a law firm with a targeted focus and things like that. But things don't actually work in real life like that, right? So while I was developing this idea, uh, you know it took maybe 6 8 months, and then my sister had to relocate to Bombay. So that project that I had started with her kind of it took a back seat, and this freelance work that I was doing became what I started doing. And then it got to a point where we had so many people coming in that I thought that I should incorporate and name it, and that's how I incorporated. I actually did not start out thinking that I'm going to build a law firm. And actually, what that did is took a lot of pressure off me, right? Because I was not really. So I think a lot of people, take time to become entrepreneurs, or or are always in doubt whether they should start on their own, or they should continue wherever they are currently working. And I think it's because of analyzing risk, right? So if you analyze something too much, it becomes difficult to make choices, right? So while I was figuring out things with my sister, and I didn't even realize that there was a pipeline of clients and a flow of work that was getting built. And only later I realized that it's been a blessing in disguise, right? So I think sometimes life is full of surprises, right? Yeah. So that's how the journey actually evolved. It wasn't a methodical plan, strategic decision of starting a law firm with this kind of a focus. But I was obviously very passionate about entrepreneurship, so the core stayed, and we built on top of that when I decided to do it full time and with full focus.
That's so interesting. Thank you so much for being so honest. I feel like, whenever you talk to founders or lawyers and senior lawyers, very often, you don't realize that a lot of the things that happen behind the scenes is a mixture of fate and things happening on their own and
Of course, of
organically.
course, of
And
course, of
it's so
course.
easy to
So I think
glorify.
absolutely, it's so easy to glorify. And I think I want to speak openly about this, because I want people to know that you don't have it all figured out. If you're expecting to get out of law school and know exactly what you should do and what you will be good at and all of that, it just doesn't happen like that. Life takes its own time for you to figure out what you can be good at. And I think what you need to focus on are the following: one, why are you doing something, right? And second, are you good at it, right? So if you have a very strong reason and you don't have the resources, you don't have the skill for that particular line of business or that particular job, then it doesn't add up. But if you're truly passionate about something and you have the requisite skill that it takes to that it takes to actually do well in that particular job, or whatever line of business you choose, I think then things start adding up together. So you have to find a mix of both. And I know so many people who've started late in life and done really well. So I think that everybody has their own journey. So I think people should not be looking at other people and thinking that okay, this person's done so well or this person's not doing well. I think everybody has their time.
That's so interesting. And if I can just probe further, I mean, I'm wondering, how did you negotiate that stage when you were conflicted between fully going into being an entrepreneur to then,
Yeah.
because what you're doing now is you're working with entrepreneurs, but you're very much in the role of a lawyer. So
Yeah.
was there a time when you were very conflicted and then decided that, okay, this is the best middle ground for me to then take forward?
I think, like I said, that, things started evolving and taking shape without me having to do much, right? So it was a very easy transition then, right? So had I left the law firm with this idea that, I'm going to build my own law firm, I think a lot of thoughts would have come then. But because of this process, at least that I personally went through, by the time that project did not take off with which I was trying to do with my sister, we already had a pool of clients. We were already seeing referrals come through. A lot of things were already in place. I already had a team of two people then. So I think, a lot of things just added. So I wasn't very conflicted when I decided to go all in.
Okay, okay, great. And now, coming to the law firm itself, you are, rated one of the best for private equity, in the private equity space, and y'all are, really at the top of the ranks. And if you look at it, you're competing with law firms that have been around for years, that have been established by, a group of people. You're also probably one of the few women, I guess, leading a law firm in those rankings. If you really look down to it. So I just wanted to know that, I mean, firstly, that's an amazing achievement. And how, have there been a lot of moments of doubt of, that imposter syndrome? And how did you really think that, okay, I can differentiate my offerings from what other people are doing in order to then stand out and excel?
It didn't happen like that, Nihan. It didn't happen like that. It didn't happen by sitting and comparing myself to any other law firm. I am not in this rat race at all, right? I want to be happy in here and now, and I don't look at life like that. And I think the attitude by itself has allowed us to grow freely, right? Because you're not growing under the pressure of, I have to achieve this and I have to not achieve that. I think what we did right is that, you know, and I think it's been obviously challenging, right? I was a lawyer by far, right? Like first 4 or 5 years of my life, what I've done is primarily somebody else gave me an assignment and I delivered and executed, right? I knew nothing about running a business at all. And I was not even a very senior lawyer. I was out of law school. It had been 5 years, and I was a senior associate or a principal associate in my previous organization, right? So I wasn't a partner. I was not rainmaking. I was not bringing in clients. I think the first engagement letter that I actually signed was for my own law firm. So I think I had no prior experience whatsoever in how to do things. So I did it my way. Right. So when you don't know what to do, then you have to teach yourself. Right. So I did it my way. I kind of guided myself through my own instinct, and I think we focused on trying to get the right people. I think culture is one of the most important things, and there have been so many learnings on that front. And I think obviously, there are days when everything looks like it's going your way. There are days that it doesn't. But I think that's one of the things that you have to make peace with, right? As an entrepreneur, irrespective of what you do, there'll always be uncertainty, right? So just because you're doing well today doesn't mean you always will, and just because you aren't doing well today doesn't mean it'll always be like that, right? So I think honestly, these rankings and things like that, obviously fill me with gratitude immensely, but it doesn't make me feel like, oh wow, we've done this. I think just being happy today, and obviously so proud of this recognition that we are getting, and I think, extremely full of gratitude, but not looking to compete with people. I think every firm has their own focus, and most of them are extremely well organized, extremely noteworthy firms. So I think it would be wrong of me to say that, okay, great, I'm at the top of the list. I don't think I look at life like that.
Okay, that's great. I think as an outsider, seeing the rankings is something that I'm like that. I feel that that's so impressive, for you to have
Yeah.
achieved. But it's really good to hear that, the way you look at it is to really live in the present and do the best you can, because I guess that's
And do the
on.
best on every deal, do the best for every client, right? And I think, one of the things that we are doing, and you spoke about differentiation, right? One of the things that I think I have done, as a law firm, is to, to look at things slightly with a practical mindset, right? So we see practice requires you to be, in addition to a great lawyer, also someone who understands sensitivity of time, also somebody who understands the need for particular kind of negotiation, right? So I think that we always try and look at it, even if we are representing a fund, we make sure that we make the fund aware that what is the current market standard, what are other funds doing, right? Should you be asking for so many rights or not? Let's look at it also from the founder's side, right? So we really want to be someone who's known to be a catalyst on a transaction than someone who wins over all negotiations and absolutely does not consider any perspective from the other side. And I think it's largely been appreciated, Nian. I think, one of the things that I've seen and I have so much gratitude about is that, like I said, that I had not started with this great a lot of people ask me that you were not even a partner at a law firm. Like, how did you even think that you can build a law firm? And honestly, I didn't. But I think, one of the things that I've realized is that so much work that we get is because of people across the table from us appreciating our work, right? Because they appreciate the at least the way we handle a project, right? And we try and look at it not from a perspective of my client versus yours. And I think that's been one of the key differentiators.
Right. And you also spoke about some while ago about how, in the long journey, there's of course been so many learnings, and one was around work culture and things like that. So as a lawyer, or just in your journey till now, is there any other challenge that you would like to share that you may have faced? It could be something specific or something broad, and what you've
I
learned.
think, taking from what you asked me in the previous question, I think it's been rather challenging to build out a business out of a skill set, right? So I think when you start a business, you can't just focus on the projects that you have, right? Because you also have to look at hiring, you also have to look at accounts, you also have to look at marketing, you also have to look at, you know, a hundred things, right? You also have to look at what other practice areas can you build. You also have to onboard other partners, right? Like, there's so much that needs to happen for you to build an organization or a company than just being good on a particular client call, right? So I think that entire aspect has been, of course, very challenging. There's been so many learnings. We've done well at times, we've failed at times, but I think, it's just a part of the process, right? So I think overall, that entire journey of being somebody who maybe was good at being a lawyer and being a support to a client, to evolving to someone who's still learning, but to some extent has figured how to run a business and how to manage and control different functions of the business. I think that entire journey has definitely been full of challenges. It's not easy, right, to figure all of this. And I think, in general, I think, I'm one of those women entrepreneurs who really feel that, I think, of course, there are lots of things that go against us as women, right? And no denying that, but I think we need to change our mindset. We need to start making ourselves an equal in our mind before we ask somebody else to, right? So going into a room, I've never looked at it from a perspective of, okay, there are three men and it's only me. I've never given pitch to any client who we're looking to onboard with this perspective that, maybe I'll not be chosen because I'm a woman. I really think that, you have to be good. It is to some extent a merit based world. People want someone who will be effective and good at what they do, irrespective of gender. I think it's possible, right? And I want women to also understand that, I think as we want to promote more women entrepreneurs. We want to have more women in workforce, right? But I think we have to fix the culture that we grew up with. You have to make, a culture shift. By which I mean that when I started to think on the lines that I want to be an entrepreneur, whether it was for a juicing business or a law firm, my parents never stopped me. That was a big reassurance, right? They never said that, okay, I don't think you can do it, and if you don't do it, then what will happen, and things like that. And as a culture, if we can speak up and influence parents to uh, you know uh, make their children, especially women, grow up knowing that anything is possible, and you have to be true to your core, and you have to focus, and you have to be good at what you do. Opportunities will come your way, right? Now, of course, there's a bias, like you said, that 2% of women take companies to IPO. Fewer female founders get VC capital, no denying that. But that is not going to change overnight. That is also a factor, Neon, of how many women entrepreneurs are starting out, right? So if you only have 20 founders pitching amongst 100 founders, the ratio will be like that, correct? So it's not like there are hundreds of women entrepreneurs who are pitching and nobody's getting money, and only that 2% is getting money. So as you increase the number of women in workforce, as you increase and make it acceptable for more women to start businesses, the number of women pitching for their business, the number of women taking businesses to IPOs will also increase, right? It has to be a ground up thing.
Right, absolutely. And like one thing that I think that I was reading up about Bergen Law online, and I think that one of the key foundations that you all rest on is that you're a contemporary and adaptive and dynamic
Yeah.
firm, and that's the kind of work that you're trying to do as well. So you were talking about mindset. So is there, for a legal professional, are there any particular skill sets or a mindset that you think is necessary to succeed in today's day and age? I mean, as a lawyer.
I don't think that you can differentiate it basis on being a lawyer. I think you have to be, in a world which has become so competitive, right? Everybody is good. Everybody's gone to a good school. How will you differentiate yourself, right? So you have to be able to give people more than what they expect, right? That's the core that we live by. That's the core that we maintain in the service business that I've built, right? If somebody is expecting X, give them X plus Y. Right? So you have to, I think it's not just about skill set. See, it's minimum required standard that you are going to be a presentable person, you're going to be intelligent, you're going to be hardworking, you're going to take care of everything that's required to be taken care of, and all of that is not a skill set. It's actually minimum standard, right? What do you do on top of that when you get there? There are hundreds of people still there, right, who meet all those minimum standards. So you have to be able to figure out what you're good at and then get better every day, right? Just because I have done X number of deals doesn't mean I know everything, right? You learn from everything that comes your way, you imbibe and you get better. And that's what you have to focus on. So the mindset has to be open to learning, whether it is to learn from your senior or your junior, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And that's not anything to do with law and lawyers, right? That's how you have to be in today's world.
Right. Yeah, that's common across professions.
Yeah.
That's really true. Just going back to the point you spoke about earlier about how, there are only so many women founders, and so the ratio for women then leading IPOs and things like that would also go down. This is
Yeah.
something I've thought a lot about, in the legal ecosystem. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't think there's any doubt that there are enough women now graduating from law schools, enough women
Absolutely.
entering firms, right? So that's
Yeah.
great. That's amazing. But
Yeah.
I'm wondering, that doesn't necessarily translate to women then being promoted to senior partners. We don't see as many women in key roles. We don't see as many women as senior advocates. So I
Yeah.
was just wondering, and of course, like you said, this doesn't change overnight. But I'm just saying
Yeah.
that, how do you think that would eventually change, or what are your
It
thoughts?
will happen. I think it will happen. So if you see that there are so many women partners now, maybe not as much as you would want, but they are much more than they used to be, right? So like I said, change is gradual. It cannot happen overnight. But I think, like what you said, right, those are going to be the factors. If you look at law firms in the next 10 years, you're not going to be surprised to see a managing partner who's a woman. All the questions that you're asking me will become like matter of fact, right?
I hope so,
So
yeah.
hopefully in 10, or if not 10, maybe 15, 20 years, it will happen, right? Because I think, what happens is that a lot of women graduate from law schools, they start working in law firms, but there are two real places where I think that they don't go back into workforce. One is that, when they get married, right? And that will also require a culture shift for families to support, and to allow women to go back into workforce. And one is when they obviously have to take a break when they have children. I think the number slims down. So while a lot of women graduate from law school and join the workforce, if you look at numbers post these two big milestones, in every woman's life, you will see the numbers thin down, right? And also I think law firms have to maybe change their own systems and cultures as well, right? So I think that, like a lot of law firms are known for really long nights and really long days and things like that, right? So I think I'm not saying change it for women, but change it for better, right? Change it for better, change it to make it like one of the things that we've really tried to do. And it's also maybe because I'm a younger founder that we've really tried to make our law firm a fun place to work, right? So we do a lot of things that that you just do with a bunch of friends, right? And I don't mean just parties, I mean like a lot of we recently went for a picnic and everybody played games. We do a lot of like these online games now in the world of like COVID, when we are virtual and things like that. A lot of things that we want to build into the system and culture, where we say that you don't just look at hierarchy, and you don't just look at people as machines working x number of hours a day. You also build a culture by creating a good environment to work in. And who wouldn't want to work at a place that feels comfortable, right, to work at? And I think if you create cultures and environments like that, more women will come back to work, right?
Yeah, I completely agree, and that's very reassuring as well. Just wrapping up, I wanted to ask you about the work you're doing. India is obviously, really booming in the startup ecosystem. So for the next 5 or 10 years, what do you see happening in that space, and how do you think that is going to affect opportunities for lawyers who are interested in entering the kind of work that you're doing?
Oh, I think it's only upwards from here. So if you look at anything or any data that looks at how the market has evolved, I think what will happen is that a lot of new angel class investing will also begin, right? So a lot of people who have invested in the last 10 years will get reassured that there are possible exits possible. So I think initially you had a lot of people who were only looked at HNIs, but you will start seeing that you and I will start investing in startups, and that will create a whole new class of investors that are spurring innovation. And I think Indians have always known to have a lot of brain, right? And our colleges, whether it's IIT or other engineering colleges, really growing a breed of extremely aspiring entrepreneurs. If you go to any, I do so many workshops. If you go and ask how many people want to take up entrepreneurship vis-a-vis employment, that ratio is growing. Like you will see so many hands up, right? So as you have more entrepreneurs or more classes of investors, I think, and I think India is obviously already a major startup hub. You are seeing so much offshore investor interest, right? We are building interesting companies. There's some exits that have happened which are noteworthy in the last 10 years. So I think the journey from here is going to exponentially it's going to result in an exponential growth for this particular sector. And for lawyers who want to focus in VC, I think it's a great place to be, right? There's always a lot of action, there's always a lot of like you know a lot of learning. I think do it for the right reasons. Do it if you're passionate about this kind of work, so figure that piece out. It's great if you can intern at a place that kind of focuses in this kind of domain before you take a deep dive. But I think it will also open up so many avenues, because not many of our laws also cover for business models that are being created right now. So I think in addition to just VC and investment transactions, I think you will see a lot of lawyers take up technology law, right? Because a lot of laws like I said, don't go into the specifics of the kind of business models that we are seeing, right? So I think as laws evolve, there'll be greater opportunity for different practice areas to be built out, right? But overall, it's an absolutely amazing sector to work in. So kudos to anybody who's even thinking.
Thank you so much. This has been so interesting and so insightful. And thank you for being so honest. I'm sure this is going to be very helpful for anyone considering a similar path. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, Nihan. Best of luck. Bye bye.
Thank you.